In October of 1775, a Connecticut farm girl named Betsy Foote opened her diary and wrote that she had carded 2 pounds of wool that day, and that doing it had made her feel, in her own spelling, nationly. She had also milked, mended, and studied, but it was the wool she remembered. Card 2 pounds of wool and feel as though you belong to a nation. Sit with that, because we have lost the thread that once joined those two ideas, and most of us never knew it was there. We picture her at a wheel by the fire, and the word that comes to mind is quaint, cozy, simple. That picture is a kindness we do to the past, and it is wrong. Behind that single image stood a chain of separate, exacting hand skills, learned young and held for life. And a girl of 12 could run most of it. Hand almost any grown adult today a raw fleece, greasy and fresh off the sheep, and ask them to bring back a coat, and they would not know where to begin. She knew exactly where to begin, and where it ended 30 steps later. Some of these will sound gentle. They are not. Number 18 could fill a whole dooryard with a stench the neighbors put in writing, and one careless hour wasted a year's worth of dye. And number 2 was reported in newspapers up and down the coast as though it were an army drilling on the green, because in a way, it was. It all began with the smallest thing her hands ever made, a soft roll of wool called a rowlog. One woman was an entire cloth factory, from the living animal to the finished coat, and that factory is gone. Let us count down what went into the ground with her, from 30 down to 1. Number 30, knowing a fleece by hand. Before a single tool touched it, she ran her fingers through the raw wool and read it like a letter, the length of the staple, the spring of the crimp, the rise that told her the fibers would behave. A wrong judgment here spoiled everything that came after. Today, that reading lives only in the hands of a few heritage shepherds, and when they are gone, it goes with them. Before we go on, hit subscribe, because what is coming up this chain could have clothed your whole family through a winter, and most of it has not been done by living hands in over 100 years. Number 29, skirting the fleece. She spread the whole thing out and stripped away the foul edges, the dung-locked tags, and the matted belly wool too short to use. It was filthy, humble work that decided how clean every later step would be. A machine does this in seconds now. Number 28, picking the locks open. She teased each lock apart with her fingers to shake loose what the sheep had carried in, the grass, the burrs, the seeds, the twigs, and yes, the bugs. Hours of it, lock by lock, often the children helping by the fire. She pulled the meadow out of it by hand. Number 27, loading the cards. She owned a pair of hand cards, flat beach paddles set with rows of bent wire teeth in leather, and there was a quiet art to how much wool to lay across them. Too little and she wasted strokes. Too much, and the fiber lumped and fought her. The right hand learned the right amount without ever being told, and small things like that are the first to vanish. Number 26, the carding stroke itself. With wool on the bottom card, she drew the top card across it in a smooth sweep, again and again, never letting the teeth fully mesh, until the fibers all lay the same way and the dirt fell free. Then, with a turn of the wrists, she rolled that cloud off the card into a soft, even cylinder, a rowlog ready for the wheel. The Kopp family of Stonington, Connecticut kept cards just like these from around 1700 well into the next century, and you can still stand before them today in the Smithsonian. When carding mills spread across America after 1840, this was the very first skill they lifted out of the home. The rowlog was the foundation of everything, and a clever girl could hide a secret inside it. Number 25, blending on the card. She could lay 2 colors together or card wool in with flax and roll them into one blended roll-log so the yarn came off the wheel already mingled. That linen and wool blend had a name, linsey-woolsey, and it clothed half the working country. The eye that could blend fiber by hand is one we simply do not train anymore. From here, the work stops being gentle. A single careless hour could now ruin a whole year of labor, and the danger only climbs as the numbers fall. Number 24, filling the quills. The smallest girl in the house had her station too, winding spun yarn onto the quills and spools that fed the loom. Alice Morse Earle, who set down these hearth scenes before they faded, called it work that was not skilled, the child's first rung on a long ladder, but it taught the hands to move while the eyes did something else. Number 23, measuring on the reel. Off the spindle, the yarn went on to a clock reel, a wooden frame that wound it into skeins, and by a clever set of gears clicked aloud when she had wound a measured length. She counted by the click in the dark, talking all the while. A spinner who could not measure her yarn could not sell it or weave it true. Number 22, scouring the fleece. This was hot, heavy, anxious work. She hauled and heated water, worked the wool through soap and lye to drive out the greasy lanolin, and rinsed it 3 or 4 times over. The danger sat in the heat. Wool shocked by water too hot or worked too hard would felt into a ruined solid mat, and there went weeks of effort in a single careless minute. She learned the temperature by feel because there was no other way. Number 21, spinning on the great wheel. Her wool wheel stood taller than she did, near 5 feet, and she did not sit at it, she walked it. One hand turned the great wheel, the other drew the roll-log back at an angle off the spindle, and the twist that became thread was made not by the machine, but in her own moving fingers. In the wool districts, a practiced spinner turned out around 5 pounds of fine yarn in a week, working some 12 hours a day. Old hands reckoned she might walk as much as 20 miles in a day at it, back and forth across one room. Number 20, drawing an even thread. Anyone can make yarn. Making it the same thickness, hour after hour, foot after foot, is the skill, because the cloth would betray every lapse, thin where she tired, thick where she hurried. That steadiness held across a 12-hour day is almost gone. Number 19, plying the yarn. To make thread strong enough to last, she spun 2 strands together, twisting them back the opposite way from how each had been spun, so the twists locked against each other instead of unwinding. It is the difference between yarn that frays and yarn that holds a coat together for 20 years. Number 18, and here is the one I promised you, the indigo vat. To dye a true blue, she had to do something that looks, even now, like sorcery. She fermented the indigo down in a vat sharpened with stale urine until the blue actually disappeared, and the liquid turned a sickly yellow-green, the dye now in the hidden form that wool can drink. The cloth came out of that vat green, and then, in the open air, before her eyes, it bloomed into blue as the oxygen took hold. The vat stank so badly, it lived far from the house, and the neighbors put their complaints in writing. Misjudged the balance, and a whole year's costly indigo lay dead in the tub. We buy blue without a thought. She conjured it, and the color was worthless until it learned to bite. The work is climbing now. Past this point, a mistake did not merely waste a year. It could not be undone at all, and the skills ahead separated a true clothier from a girl who only spun. Number 17, mordanting the fiber. Color alone slid right out of wool. In the first wash, unless she first treated the fiber with a mordant, a mineral that made the dye seize and hold. The word comes from the Latin for to bite. She used alum brightened with cream of tartar, or iron for darkness, or in the old way, urine once again. Get it wrong, and the loveliest dye rinsed away within a month. Get it right, and the color held, for mordanted wool keeps its bite for 5 years and more. The whole chemistry of it, learned without a single chemical name, has passed out of ordinary hands. Number 16, drawing fast color from the land. She knew which plant gave which color and exactly how to hold it. Madder root for warm reds and a true purple if she added alum. The native black walnut for deep, honest browns. Each needed its own heat and its own patience, kept just below a boil and watched for an hour or more. The dye garden withered the day the color bottle was invented, and the woman who could read a hillside for its colors went with it. Number 15, warping the loom. Before she could weave a single inch, she had to lay the warp, hundreds of long threads stretched in perfect order and even tension across the loom. It was slow, mathematical, unforgiving work, often a full day of it. And one thread out of its place printed itself as a flaw down the entire length of the cloth, with no hiding it later. The skill of dressing a loom by hand is now held by a vanishing few. Number 14, weaving the cloth. She threw the shuttle through the open warp, changed the shed, and beat the new thread home over and over, 10,000 times for a few yards. It was hard, physical labor. The frame was heavy and the beat was harder. So much so that in many homes the men took their turn at the loom too. The power loom swept this out of the household in a single generation. Number 13, weaving figured cloth. Beyond plain weave lay twill, and beyond that the great patterned coverlets, overshot designs built by stepping through long sequences of treadles in exact order. She held those sequences in memory, dozens of moves repeating without any written chart, and a single wrong tread broke the whole pattern. It was weaving and arithmetic at once, done by lamplight after the day's other work. When the jacquard and the power loom arrived, this living memory of pattern simply emptied out of ordinary homes. Number 12, keeping the loom honest. The loom was a machine of wood and string, and it drifted constantly. She mended heddles, kept the reed clean and even, and read the tension across the whole warp by eye and by touch, until the cloth came off square and true. A loom left untended wove rippled, useless goods, and this quiet engineering never made it into any book. Cloth off the loom, even then, was still too loose to wear. It had to be beaten into something that could turn a winter. We are into the heavy work now, the skills that took real strength and a whole community, the ones that turned thread into something that could save your life in the cold. Number 11, fulling the cloth. Raw woven wool was loose and drafty, so she shrank and felted it tight by working it wet, soaked and pounded until the fibers locked into a dense, warm, weather-turning cloth. In the old country, whole parties of women did it together, seated in a row, pounding the wet wool with their heels and keeping time with walking songs that carried across an evening. In America, a fine cleansing clay called Fuller's Earth replaced the old urine, and by 1795, Oliver Evans had built mill machinery to do the pounding. The shared labor of it, the songs and the company, is one of the warmest things we ever let go. Number 10, stretching it true. Fulled cloth left to dry as it pleased would dry crooked, so she stretched it on a tenter frame, fixing the edges with rows of small tenterhooks until it dried even and square. We still say we are on tenterhooks when we are stretched tight with worry, and we have forgotten that the words came from a wet bolt of homemade wool pinned out on a sunny hillside. The frames are gone. The phrase is all that survived. Number 9, raising the nap. To give the cloth its soft, warm face, she brushed it while still damp with the dried seed heads of the fuller's teasel, a stiff, hooked plant grown for exactly this purpose. The teasel was so trusted that an old English statute under Edward IV forbade the use of metal cards in its place. Those metal cards were said to deceitfully impair the cloth, because a teasel that meets a snag will break, where metal would tear the whole piece. By the last century, wire gigs had replaced the plant, and the craft is all but extinct. Then came the most skilled hand in the entire trade. Number 8, shearing the nap smooth. After the teasel raised the soft face, she sheared it down to one even height with great cropping shears, often raising and shearing more than once for a finer finish. This was the most exacting hand in the whole cloth trade. The shearmen who did it for a living were the highest paid workers in the entire industry, because to clip a wide bolt evenly, without a single gouge, took years to learn. To do it at home alone after doing all the rest is a mastery we can hardly imagine now. From here on, every skill left carried the weight of survival itself. Number 7, knitting in the dark. With finished yarn, she clothed the family's hands and feet, knitting stockings, mittens, and caps by feel alone, the needles moving in her lap while her eyes watched a child, or the fire, or the road. Betsy Foote's diary, the one we opened with, lists knitting among the chores, layered into a single ordinary day. These were not decorations. Bare feet and bare hands in a New England January could cost a person their toes, their fingers, their life. We knit now for pleasure, if at all. She knit so the winter could not take pieces of her family. Number 6, keeping the cards alive. None of it, not one rowlog, was possible without the hand cards, and the cards wore out, their wire teeth bending and tearing free with use. So the teeth were reset by hand, each bent wire drawn out and a fresh one pushed through the leather at its proper angle, a slow winter evening job. Alice Morse Earle remembered the father of the house doing exactly this by the fire while the children whittled spools beside him. The cards were beech and leather and steel, mended to last a lifetime until ready-made card cloth and the carding mills arrived, and the household stopped mending its own tools. Without the flock, though, there was nothing to card at all. Number 5, bringing the flock through winter. Every rowlog began a full year earlier, with a living sheep kept alive through the hard months, fed and watched and lambed so that spring would bring a fleece to shear. This was the true first link, and it was relentless. Lose the flock to cold or sickness or wolves, and there was no wool, no yarn, no cloth, no warmth in the year to come for anyone. That husbandry, where a family's warmth walked on 4 legs across a snowy field, is gone from the ordinary household, and a skill kept by one woman dies with her unless she gives it away. Number 4, handing it down. There was no book that held all of this. The entire chain, 30 skills deep, lived only in the hands of the women who had it, and it passed to the next generation in one way only, mother to daughter sitting side by side through the long work, until the girls' hands knew it too. Earle's hearth scenes show 3 generations at the wool at once, the grandmother carding, the mother spinning, the daughter at the reel. Break that chain for even a generation, let the daughters learn other things, and the whole inheritance is gone with no way back. That is most of how we lost it. And then the British Crown tried to take the craft itself, and the women answered. Number 3, spinning as defiance. Britain had long tried to keep cloth making for itself. The Wool Act of 1699 set out to choke colonial woolen manufacture so that America would buy English goods and stay a supplier of raw fiber. So when the quarrels deepened, the homemade cloth she had always made became a banner. To spin your own wool, to wear plain homespun instead of fine British weave, was now a public act of resistance, and everyone could read it on your back. In 1774, the entire graduating class of Harvard appeared in homespun. The skill in her hands had quietly become a political force, and once a year, that force gathered in the open. Number 2, the one the newspapers could not stop writing about. The spinning bee. Up and down the coast, the women the press called the Daughters of Liberty gathered at a minister's house or out on the common and spun together from sunrise until dark, while the whole town watched as if at a drill. As far back as 1749, 300 young spinsters had spun side by side on Boston Common. Towns offered bounties for the most cloth, and Hartford put up 12 pounds for the year's finest woolen output. One young woman, Charity Clark, wrote that the women of America were becoming a fighting army armed with spinning wheels. A domestic skill learned at the carding paddle as a girl had become a way for women shut out of every assembly to help clothe an army and shake an empire. Which brings us to the one skill that held all the others inside it. And number 1 is not a single skill at all. Number 1 is all of it, held at once in one woman. That is the thing she truly took to the grave, and it is the thing we have most completely lost. She could take a living fleece, greasy and full of the meadow, and walk it the whole distance by hand, with no machine at any step, all the way to a warm, dyed, fulled, finished coat. The judging, the carding, the spinning, the dyeing, the weaving, the fulling, the shearing, the knitting, the keeping of the very tools and the very sheep, all of it lived together in her hands and her memory at once. She was the whole factory, and the factory could think and remember and teach. Abigail Adams wrote in 1774, "I will seek wool and flax, and work willingly with my hands." And every woman who did learned that entire world, starting at the very smallest place, the first soft roll of wool a girl ever made on the cards. The rowlog was never just a roll of fluff. It was the first link in a chain that ended with a whole people clothing itself. And when the women who could feel that whole chain in their hands were gone, the chain was gone with them. So here is what I want to leave you with, and it is small, because the smallest things are what we lost first. You will not full a bolt of broadcloth this week, or build an indigo vat your neighbors complain about. But you could do one thing: run your hand through a raw fleece at a county fair and try to read it. Learn one plant in your own yard that gives a true color. Card a little wool into a single soft rowlog and feel for one moment what every one of those women felt before they were 10 years old. Pick one, just one, and try it. And then tell me something below. Which of these did a grandmother or a great-grandmother of yours still know how to do? Someone in your family was the last person who ever watched her do it. I would like to hear who she was. Next time, we are widening the lens past wool to 30. American hand skills so rare that almost no one alive can still do a single one of them. The ones that raised the houses and kept whole families fed when there was nothing to buy. Subscribe so you do not miss it, because these are going the same way the rowlog went, quietly, while no one was counting. She counted by the click in the dark. The least we can do is count what she carried. And remember that once, not so long ago, one pair of hands held all of it.